चूड़ामणि नमः कमलनाभाय नमः कमलमालिने नमः कमलपादाय नमस्ते कमलेक्षणं यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तद्ब्रह्म देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। आनंद कंद सच्चिदानंद श्री राधा कृष्ण चरणारविंद मकरंद मिलंद महानुभाव. The most fortunate and the most blessed of all living souls, real seekers of divine bliss, let us chant the glories of Shri Radha Rani for a few minutes, and thereafter, with the grace of Shri Maharaj Ji, I will try to shed some light on the subject at hand. कृपा करु कृपा करु कृपा करु राधे
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 कृपा काहि तनु तोरा 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 कृपा करु राधे
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 कृपा करु कृपा करु कृपा करु राधे
कृपा करु कृपा करु कृपा करु राधे
ओ कृपा करु कृपा करु कृपा करु राधे
कृपा करु कृपा करु कृपा करु राधे
मैं तो हूँ पतित अति 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 कृपा करु राधे
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 भला हूँ बुरा हूँ जो हूँ कृपा करु राधे
भला हूँ बुरा हूँ जो हूँ कृपा करो राधे
कृपा करो कृपा करो 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 कृपा करो राधे
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 कृपा करो कृपा करो 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 कृपा करो राधे
बोले श्रीमद सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय
लाडली लाल की
जय
In this devotional song, the devotee was addressing Shri Radha Rani. Oh, my benevolent Radhe, kindly bestow your grace upon me. Whether good or bad, whatever I may be, please bestow your grace upon me. All great acharyas, spiritual masters, have accepted divine grace, that is kripa, as the basic condition behind God realization. So this is the topic that I will be elaborating on, the significance of the grace of God. But first, let us review a few very important philosophical facts. As you know, every living being in the universe is a fraction of God. And God is the embodiment of unlimited, everlasting, and ever-increasing bliss. So every living being, in fact, is a fraction of bliss. And since every fraction has a natural love, a natural affinity towards its entirety, its origin, every living being naturally loves and desires happiness, bliss. And moreover, since every living being is eternal and unable to remain inactive for even a fraction of a moment, he has been striving to attain happiness since time immemorial. But curiously enough, in spite of our incessant search for happiness since beginningless time, we have not tasted even a drop of it so far. If we had, then we would have been absolutely satisfied. So, inquiring into the reason for this, if we look into the Vedas, if we go into the scriptures, the Vedas and Shastras tell us that happiness can be ours only upon knowing God, because God is the abode of unlimited happiness. He's the infinite reservoir of bliss, the ocean of divine bliss. Thereafter, when we make an attempt to know Him, however, the same Vedas and Shastras then tell us that He cannot be known, because He is divine, whereas the media that we employ to gain His knowledge, that is our senses, mind, and intellect, are material. Moreover, He is the inspirer, the illuminator, the upholder, and the knower of our senses, mind, and intellect, which are inspired, upheld, illumined, and known by him. So how can the supreme upholder be grasped by our limited and material senses, mind, and intellect? Moreover, he is omniscient, all-knowing, whereas the individual soul is ignorant. The Vedas describe him as the abode of numerous mutual contradictions. Such a God is beyond the intelligence of even Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar. The Vedas define him as unapproachable, incomprehensible, inconceivable, ineffable, etc., etc. So how can we know him? And if we cannot gain his knowledge, how will we ever attain our ultimate aim of supreme happiness? We become disheartened. However, the same Vedas, kindling a ray of hope in our heart, state, Vedahametam purukham mahant maditya varanam tamasah parastat purusukta. They state, you know God whom I just told you about, the one who's beyond Maya, the one who is inconceivable, unapproachable, and ineffable? Well, countless people have known and attained him. You may say, what? He can be known, but you were just saying that he cannot be known. And you also proved it through a number of logical explanations. How will you now prove that it is possible to know and attain him? Again, the Vedas say, well, if it were impossible to know him, then why would we say, tameva viditvati mrityumeti nanyaha pantha vidyate yanaya, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8. In other words, by knowing him alone can the individual soul attain freedom from the bondage of Maya. You'll say, all right, then kindly tell us, how can we know him? How can we know and attain God? The Vedas state, Nayam atma parvajanena labhyo na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. Kathopanishad 1:2-23. Nayamatma. God cannot be known by merely listening to discourses. Neither can you know him by reading the scriptures, nor can you know him by hearing about him. In fact, even if God were to come down on earth, and even if we were to hear him talk about himself, we still would not be able to know him. You may think, surely, if God were to stand before us, we would attain him. We would attain his knowledge immediately. No, but just think, if this were true, then we would have attained him by now, because let alone stand in front of us, he's sitting right inside of us. And still, we are not getting the least benefit. And moreover, we have seen him not once, twice, but countless times during the course of our innumerable past lives and his countless dissensions. But whenever we saw him, it was with our material senses, mind, and intellect. Chedanandamaye deha tumhari vigat vikar jani adhikari. In other words, since we cannot perceive divinity with material senses, mind, and intellect, we saw him as an ordinary material being. And this is why Lord Krishna says in the Gita, Avajananti mamudha manushim tanumashritam paramabhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Gita 9:11. Lord Krishna says, Arjun, unaware of my divine nature, the ignorant living beings under the control of Maya mistake me for an ordinary man. And if we think we can know him through the performance of rites and rituals, then again, we should hear what the Gita has to say. Naham vedairna tapasa na danena na chejjaya shakya evam vidho drashtum drishtavanasi mam yatha. 9:11. No amount of austerity, penance, rites and rituals can help one attain him. All right, you may say, now that we know what will not work, let us find out what will. So according to the Vedas, Yamevaisha vrinute tena labhyastasyaisha atma vrinute tanugvam swam. Kathopanishad 1:223. The Vedas tell us that it is only the most fortunate soul who is blessed with God's grace who can see, know, and attain Him and become eternally gratified. Dhatuh prasadat deva prasadach. Only through His prasad, only through His grace can one know Him. Tasya no rasva, tasya no dhehi. Artha Ved. The word kripa appears in Rig Veda alone 18 times, and the word daya se 11 times. And in his commentary, the great sage Sayanacharya has disclosed the meaning of the word daya se to be also grace. And you may have read the Ramayana. Soi janai jehi dehu janai janat tumahi hoi jai tumari hi kripa tumahi raghunandan janahi bhagat ur chandan. Ram kripa binu sunu khagarai jani na jai Ram prabhutai ati hari kripa jahi par hoi paun dehi ehi marg soi. Meaning, it is only the recipient of God's utmost grace who treads the path of God realization. So just imagine how fortunate you all are, we all are. The Adhyatma Ramayana also states, Yasya prasadam kurute sachainam drashtum arhati. Only the recipient of God's grace can see God. So all the scriptures, from the Vedas to the Ramayana, recognize the importance of God's grace. All great acharyas, spiritual masters, have accepted, recognize that God can be known only through His grace. Even Shankaracharya, the leader of the impersonalists, states, Dhanyoham kritakrityoham vimuktoham bhavagrahat nityananda swarupoham purnoham tvadanugrahat. I have become blessed, gratified, and liberated. How? Tvadanugrahat. Only through your grace. And in his commentary on the Gita, he writes, Tadanugraha hetu ke naivacha vijnanena moksha siddhir bhavitu marhati. Meaning, liberation cannot be attained, even liberation cannot be attained without the grace of God. And not only Hinduism, but other religions also recognize the same. Guru Granth Sahib states, Jaisi nadri kare taisa hoi, binu nadri nanak nahi koi, nadri binu kachu na hoi. Nothing is possible without His nadar, without His grace. Now you may wonder, but is there no other way to attain God except through His grace? In fact, God realization means attaining freedom from Maya. So if we somehow free ourselves from Maya, we will no longer need to attain God's grace. Why should we beg God unnecessarily? All we are concerned with is getting results. And if that can be accomplished by attaining liberation from Maya, well, that is fine. But do you know what the Vedas say about Maya? Mayam tu prakritim vidyan mayanam tu maheshwaram tasyavayava bhutaistu vyaptam sarvamidam jagat. Shvetashvatara 4:10. Maya is not something ordinary. It is a power of God. The Gita declares the same. Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. And in the Ramayana too, we read, Sodasi raghubir ki samujhe mithya sopi मिटै न राम कृपा बिनु नाथ कहूँ पद रूपी. Maya is Lord Ram's own handmaiden, his own servant, and there's no release from her grip except by Shri Ram's grace. So try as you may, Maya will not let go of you without the grace of God. And yet, there are some who have another theory about Maya. They do not believe, they do not consider Maya to be a power of God. The non-dualists, the followers of Shankaracharya, dismiss Maya as a mere illusion. Sri Shankaracharya likens Maya to a rope which is mistaken for a snake in the dark. In fact, out of the three eternal entities, God, the individual soul, and Maya, Shankaracharya accepts only God to be real. According to him, everything that exists is God. We, the individual souls, are also God. Aham Brahmasmi, he says. And Maya is only an illusion. रजत सीप महाभास जिमि यथा भानु करवारी तदपि मृषाति हूँ काल सोई भ्रम न सकई को उटारी. Shankaracharya Ji says that just as a seashell, an oyster shell in the dark gives the illusion of silver in the dark, and just as sand in the desert gives the illusion of water, in the same way, Maya is also an illusion. However, Tulsidas Ji says to Shankaracharya, all right, I'm willing to accept that Maya is an illusion. However, even this illusion cannot be destroyed through self-effort. Then how can one destroy it? Tulsidas Ji answers, Sodasi raghubir ki samujhe mithya sopi जासु कृपास भ्रम मिटि जाई गिरि जासोई कृपालु रघुराई. So even if Maya is thought of as an illusion, God's grace is necessary in destroying this illusion. So it is decided, if we wish to attain God, we will have to attain His grace first. This is confirmed by all the scriptures. So first, God will bestow His grace on us, then we will be able to know Him, acquire faith in Him, develop love for Him, and ultimately, consequently, attain Him. But you see, the point is, let us not use this as an excuse not to make any effort toward God realization. Let us not just wait and sit back and wait for Him to shower His grace on us. No. राम भरोसे खाए के रहो खाट पर सोए. Let us not do this. Moreover, when we do something wrong, sometimes we put the blame on God and say, "Wahi hota hai jo manzoor-e khuda hota hai." In other words, it was the will of God. And to prove our point, people will conveniently quote verses from the Ramayana. Oma daru yoshit ki nahi, sabhi nachavat Ram Gosai. In other words, we are all puppets in the hands of God. God's will is always done. You will find the most ignorant and the most literate as well, especially in India, quoting such verses that seemingly hold God responsible for our actions. Gyani moodh na koe, na koi moorakh, na ko syana, varte sab kichu tera bhana. In other words, if someone is ignorant, it is because of God's will, and if someone is learned, that too is willed by God. There's a very common saying amongst people the world over, that not even a blade of grass can move without God willing it so. In other words, God alone is the worker, the doer. But is God the performer of all our actions? Let us take a close look at this question and determine whether or not God is the governor and director of all actions performed by us. There are a number of logical explanations given in the scriptures. The first one being that if God were the actual worker, then we would not have performed any wrong actions. Because how can he do anything wrong? Whom the Vedas call omniscient, all-knowing. Yaha sarvagyaha sarva vidyasya gyan mayan tapaha. Mundukopanishad 1:9. You see, if the driver of a car is intoxicated, there's a great possibility of an accident. But if the driver has his senses and mind under control, then the car is bound to run smoothly. So in the same way, if God were the governor of all actions, of all our actions, then there would not have been any question of ignorance in this world. This is the first point. Secondly, if God were the actual worker, then he would have had us all perform either virtuous actions or evil actions. Why? Because he tells us in the Gita, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshyosti na priyaha. No one is hateful nor dear to me. I treat everyone equally. He's impartial. And yet, we have historical evidence. Personalities like Meera, Nanak, Kabir, Tulsidas, and Surdas performed actions that transported them beyond the realm of Maya, whereas we are still performing actions that are making us revolve in this eternal cycle of birth and death. Now you may wonder, what kind of God is this who claims to be impartial, yet is responsible for such a difference in our actions? The third logic is that if God is the performer of our actions, then he should enjoy the fruits of our virtuous actions and pardon himself for the evil ones. Why should we bear the consequences of actions performed by him? Such injustice does not exist even in the world. So are we to believe that God is even worse than worldly people like us? No. And the fourth logic is that if our actions were performed by God, then why did he specify vidhi and nishedh, that is, permissible and prohibited actions in the Vedas? Do this, this, and this, but do not do this, this, and that. Then he should have just told us, oh, humans, you do not need to do anything since I am the performer of all your actions. And the fifth and the final logic is that if our actions were performed by God, then why did he create heaven, hell, and earth. Why does he give to some souls the body of a dog, to some the body of a cat, to some the human body, and to some the body of a heavenly God? Why does he make all these arrangements? What was the need for all these arrangements if he himself performs all our actions? I'm sure you understand by now. Well, the fact is that God does not perform our actions. He tells us in the Gita, Na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijate prabhu. 5:14. Na datte kasya chit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhu. 5:15. He says, I am not responsible for the virtuous or evil actions of the individual beings. Guru Granth Sahib also states, Apai biji apai khau, nanak hukmi avahu jahu. We are responsible for our own actions, not God. God does not interfere with our actions, nor does he, God does not perform our actions, nor does he interfere with our choice of actions. But if God is not the performer of our actions, then if you've read the Vedas, then you may question, what do the following Vedic statements mean, which seem to hold God responsible for our actions? Esh heva sadhu karma karyati, esh heva sadhu karma karyati, antaha pravishtaha shasta jananam ved. Meaning that God makes us perform. The Vedas are telling us God at one place in the Vedas, they state that God makes us perform virtuous as well as evil actions according to his wishes by entering into the innermost recesses of our heart. Vedavyas states in the Brahma Sutra, it is written, Paratu Tachruteha. God is the inspirer of all actions performed by all living beings. So is God, is he, or is he not? So what are we to believe? Is he or is he not the performer of our actions? Veda Vyas destroys our confusion with the explanation, with an explanation from the following verse from the same scripture, Brahma Sutra Vedant. Krit prayatnapekshastu vihit pratishidha vayarthya dibhya. In other words, God inspires the individual to act according to the effort and desire of the individual. Therefore, the responsibility of these actions lies with the individual, not with God. Let me clarify this point through an example. Different seeds produce different trees, but seeds are not solely responsible for the production of trees. Rain also plays an essential part in the process. And yet the cause behind the difference in trees lies within the seed and not with water. The tree was already present within the seed in its subtle form. All rain does is to bring it out in its gross form. So in the same way, we perform different actions, but we cannot perform these actions without the inspiration of God. His inspiration is as essential in the performance of our actions as water is for the growth of trees. The difference in our actions, however, the cause behind the difference in our actions lies with the individual, not with God. Why? Because, you see, the actions we perform were already present within our desires in their subtle form. Had there been no motive or desire behind our actions, we would have been justified in holding God responsible for our actions. But since this is not so, the Govinda Bhashya states, it is wrong to hold God responsible for our actions. Rather, we should say that God gives us the power to perform actions. But how we use this power depends entirely on us. The Govinda Bhashya further states, Tasmat sajivah prayojya karta pareshastu hetu karta. In other words, just as a seed cannot germinate without water, so the individual soul cannot work without the power of God. You see, there are two kinds of workers. One is prayojya karta, the actual worker, and the other is prayojak karta. Tasmat sajivah pareshastu prayojya karta. God is the motivator and we are the actual workers. In other words, God empowers our senses, mind, and intellect so that they may perform actions. But how we use that power depends entirely on us. Swatantarah kriyamane vai krito bhagavata vida hitopdesh. Our senses, mind, and intellect, you see, are devoid of consciousness. They merely seem to be conscious due to the presence of the soul, which is a conscious entity. And when the power of the soul is taken away, our senses, mind, and intellect become inert, inanimate. Once again, they become devoid of consciousness. We see this when someone dies. So what does God do? He gives power to the senses, mind, and intellect. He gives the eyes the power to see, the power of hearing to the ears, the power of smell to the nose. To the mind, he gives the power to think, and to the intellect, he gives the power to decide. So after enabling us to perform all these functions, actions, he leaves us to utilize these faculties as we like. So how we use our senses, mind, and intellect, the point is, depends completely on us. For example, a policeman is given a revolver for his own safety and the safety of others. But if he uses his revolver to kill himself instead, his superiors are in no way responsible for his death. In the same way, God has given us the power to think and act, but the use or misuse of that power depends exclusively on us. God cannot be and should not be held responsible. Let me give you another example. A river provides water to everyone alike, but the water is used in different ways by different people. Some use it for cooking, some for cleaning, some for drinking, and some may even use it to drown themselves, to kill themselves. The responsibility of these actions does not lie with the river, nor does the river bear the consequences of these actions. In the same way, God provides his power to everyone alike. But he should not be held responsible for the actions we perform through his power. So God has been proven innocent. He can no longer be blamed. We cannot think, say, or hear someone saying that God is responsible for our actions or that he is the performer of our actions. No. And yet, it goes against human nature to accept responsibility for our own mistakes and shortcomings. It is our nature to hide our mistakes, even if it means making 100 more to do it. So, while accepting the fact that God is not to be held responsible for actions, we nevertheless refuse to assume responsibility for them. We put the blame on destiny. Some of us put the blame on destiny instead. We say even Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar are controlled by destiny because it is written in the scriptures. Kaha munis himavant suno jo vidhi likha lilar dev danuj nar nag muni ko na metanhar. In other words, no one can escape the dictates of destiny. Even the Mahabharata states, avashyameva bhoktavyam kritam karma shubha shubham. We have to bear the consequences, we must, of our virtuous as well as evil actions. We are responsible for our own actions, our own mistakes, and we will have to correct them ourselves. In other words, we're not going to gain anything. The point is that we're not going to gain anything by crying over fate. And furthermore, the saints tell us, do not worry about what is written in your destiny. Use your precious time in shaping it instead. Man can bring even God under his control through bhakti, through the power of devotion, the power of love. Then what to speak of destiny? Saint Priyadas clarifies this point further in the Hitopadesh. Karmanam sanchitadinam jivo dhinastathapihi swatantraha kriyamane vai krito bhagavata vida. Meaning, although one must face the consequences of one's past actions, yet one is free to perform new actions, which will bear appropriate fruit in the future. Man has the freedom to act. And as you know, this freedom has been given only to humans. Not even heavenly gods are blessed with this precious gift. The freedom to act, the freedom to perform kriyaman karma. Therefore, what could be more destructive than misusing this precious gift from God by crying over fate? Apart from fate, some claim time to be the supreme controller. पुरुष बली नहीं होत है समय होत बलवान भिल्लई लूटी गोपिका सोई अर्जुन सोई बाण. Some claim that time is all powerful. प्रातर्भवामि वसुधाधिप चक्रवर्ती सोहम ब्रजामि विपिने जटिलस्तपस्वी. People say that time is so powerful that it can make a beggar turn into a king overnight. You see, what we call time, in fact, is synonymous with fate, with the word fate. Tulsidas Ji reprimanding, scolding those who surrender themselves to time, fate, or the will of God, in other words, plead helplessness before these three. He states in the Ramayana, जो न तरई भव सागर नर समाज अस पाए सोकृत निंदक मंदमती आत्म हन गति जाय सो परत्र दुख पावई सिर धुनि धुनि पछिताय काल ही कर्म ही ईश्वर ही मिथ्या दोष लगाए. Meaning, if one does not strive to know God while in the human form, he is bent upon self-destruction. Tulsidas says that the individual who, though equipped with the human body, fails to make an attempt to cross the ocean of Maya. Such an individual is dull-witted, moodhamati. He lacks intelligence. And not only that, he meets the fate of a self-murderer. In other words, he's called Atam Hanagati Jai. And such a fool must suffer here and hereafter. And when it is too late, he beats his head in remorse, having wrongly blamed time, fate, and the will of God. So we are back to where we started. In other words, He cannot be known without His grace. So first, again, God will have to bless us with His grace. Then we will be able to know Him. This is a sequence. And acquire faith in Him, develop love for Him, and ultimately attain Him. There were 3 interruptions that came in the way: the will of God, fate, and time. We cleared these 3 interruptions, but there still remains the fact that the grace of God is the very first step in the path of God realization. So now the question is, has anyone ever attained divine grace? Yes, countless souls have. A few amongst them are Tulsi, Sur, Meera, Nanak, Kabir, etc. Perhaps there was a condition. Perhaps there's a condition to be fulfilled. Tulsi, Meera, Nanak, etc. must have fulfilled that condition, consequently becoming eligible to receive His grace. Yes, there is a condition. As Lord Krishna tells us in the Gita, Mamevye prapadyante maya metam tarantite, 7:14. And that condition is self-surrender. We must surrender ourselves to Him. This is the one and only condition. So God's grace, how can one attain God's grace? By surrendering to Him. And what is the meaning of surrender? Surrender does not mean physical, verbal, or ceremonial surrender, no. Surrender signifies complete inactivity. To surrender means to do nothing. In fact, surrender is another name for doing nothing. Imagine, we do so much. And the definition of surrender is to do nothing. So, doing nothing, complete inactivity. Surrender is another name for complete inactivity. In other words, this stage of complete inactivity, doing nothing, is a stage we must reach in order to attain God's grace. In other words, the grace of God is based on the condition of doing nothing. And nothing cannot really be called a condition, can it? As Lord Krishna says in the Gita, it is only the individual who reaches the stage of complete inactivity who attains supreme happiness. And how can we reach this stage? Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja. So this is the stage that we must reach in order to attain God's grace, that is, the stage of doing nothing. However, to attain the state of doing nothing requires a lot of doing. The foremost, of course, you all know, is to practice devotion, devotional sadhana, bhakti, devotional practice. Practice makes perfect. I will continue on with this topic some other time. For now, Bole Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki, Srimad Sadguru Sarkar ki, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Chant for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. कृपा करू कृपा करू कृपा करू राधे
कृपा करू कृपा करू कृपा करू राधे
ओ कृपा करू कृपा करू कृपा करू राधे
कृपा करू कृपा करू कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा का ही रूप तोरा, 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 कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा करू, कृपा करू, कृपा करू राधे।
कृपा करो, कृपा करो, कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा करू, कृपा करू, कृपा करू राधे।
कृपा करो, कृपा करो, कृपा करो राधे।
शरण शरण तू कृपा करू राधे।
शरण शरण तू कृपा करो राधे।
शरण शरण तू कृपा करू राधे।
शरण शरण तू कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा करू राधे।
कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा करू राधे।
कृपा करो राधे।
शरण शरण तू कृपा करू राधे।
शरण शरण तू कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा करू, कृपा करू, कृपा करू राधे।
कृपा करो, कृपा करो, कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा करू, कृपा करू, कृपा करू राधे।
कृपा करो, कृपा करो, कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा करू राधे।
कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा करू राधे।
कृपा करो राधे।
कृपा करू, कृपा करू, कृपा करू राधे।
कृपा करो, कृपा करो, कृपा करो राधे।
बोले वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की
जय।
श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय।
जय जय श्री राधे। जय जय श्री राधे। जय जय